There are only 168 hours in the week. What chance do I have against an army of 10,000 plus engineers at Facebook who are literally paid to make the app as addictive as possible? People who are happier end up being more successful. If you can find a way to enjoy the thing that you're doing, and ideally to even find meaning in it, now all of productivity and focus and stuff becomes way easier. Those kind of small changes, if it gets the right person at the right time, can completely change someone's life.
Yeah, as I was mentioning, Feel Good Productivity, your latest book, we've been very inspired by this book and by the principles of it. So really amazing to have you. And also, I think you're using Opal, maybe.
Every day it kicks in and it stops me from going on Instagram, YouTube, Reddit, TikTok anytime between like 10 p.m. and like 9 a.m., which is actually quite a large chunk of time. So now I just have to read on my Kindle instead, which has just made my life better. So thank you for that.
Well, that's wonderful. Thanks so much for sharing this. That's so great. Like, can you take us back? What was Ali Abdaal maybe before YouTube? And what were you curious about when you were growing up? If you can look back at this time.
Yeah, so when I was like 11 years old, I came across the idea that you could make money on the internet, and I just became obsessed with this idea. You know, I was raised in a single parent household. My mum was a doctor, and in the UK, doctors don't earn very much. And so, we were never like poor or anything. But like, if I wanted to buy a PlayStation game, I would have to save up from like birthdays and Eids, and then I got a part-time job. And the thought that I could make money on the internet and maybe buy myself a new monitor and maybe even 2 monitors on my desk, like I was like, whoa, this is life-changing. And so I started teaching myself like web design and web development and like super sort of rudimentary coding with like PHP from like back in the day, and started doing like freelance web design to try and make a little bit of money on the side. And so that was the thing that I was doing when I should have been focusing on my studies and school and like friends and stuff. I was cranking out websites on the computer. And that sort of continued, into building apps, and then now that's kind of what I'm doing today as well. And medicine was a little bit of a side hustle from my kind of entrepreneurial wannabe web designer kind of endeavors.
Amazing. Another small side hustle, by the way. Super impressive that you made that switch. And by the way, I have a interesting, I think, similar backstory where I grew up in a very small village in the French Alps where there was not a ton to do. And when I came across the internet, this was kind of a massive opening for me. Actually, wait, you can actually like learn so much. You can actually do so much. You can have all these work opportunities, start to make money. Also, I think similar to you, I started building websites in my kind of early teens and started to make money of that. It was this kind of incredible opening and freedom, right? Obviously, then medicine came about. And how did that fit in the picture?
In the UK, at age 16, you pick your subjects and things like that. And at the time, I was thinking, okay, do I do computer science because I'm into the whole computer thing? Or do I do medicine because I'm good at science, I've got good grades, and like I know a lot of doctors and it's like a nice safe job, etc., etc. And I reasoned that it would be more interesting to be a doctor who knows how to code than to be a random guy who knows how to code. So I thought, okay, why don't I do medicine, and maybe I'll be a surgeon or something, and then maybe I'll keep the tech stuff going alongside, and then maybe I can build a business building some kind of medical technology in the future. This was like my sort of grand plan. And so, yeah, I got into med school. I really enjoyed medical school. I really enjoyed medicine. And the intention was that I was going to work in medicine forever and just do tech stuff on the side. But then when I started working, when I started doing placements in hospitals, I would have conversations with doctors who were older than me. And I would ask them, hey, how is your life? Like, are you happy? Are you fulfilled? If you won the lottery, would you still keep doing medicine for fun? And the response that I got was quite interesting to that question. Half of the people said they would leave immediately. One guy even said he would leave in the middle of the operation. That's how much he didn't enjoy being a doctor. And the other half said that they would go part-time. And so then I would, they would work in medicine 3 days a week rather than 6 days a week. And so I would ask, okay, well, what's stopping you from going part-time? Why not go part-time tomorrow? And it would always be about money. They would always say, well, I've got a mortgage, I've got the kids, private school, this, that, the other, the bills. And so I kind of realized that, wait a minute, this career that I'm on, if I project myself into the lives of the doctors that I see every day, I actually end up in a situation where I'm probably not happy with working full-time. I'd be very happy working part-time. And so that was when I thought, okay, I guess I've got to build a business on the side that makes enough money for me to be able to work part-time in medicine. And that was when I kind of started doing the website stuff. Probably like seriously, I built like an online question bank for medical school applicants. You know, partnered with my brother, and he was doing the front end. I was doing the back end in PHP. He was building in React, and we built this thing that was making some money. And so throughout medical school, I was sort of hustling in the evenings, trying to build this like business, in the hope that at some point in the future I'd be able to go part time. And that was actually where the interest in productivity started, because medical school is actually kind of hard. And I had to figure out like the most efficient, effective ways to study so that I could free up my own time to be able to hang out with friends and to do interesting things, because that's what university is for, and also to be able to hustle on this business on the side. So really the interest in productivity was a sort of an instrumental good that I needed to just free up more of my time.
By the way, medical school students are actually one of the key people using the Opal app. So it's I think it's going to be it's music to our ears. A lot of obviously a lot of pressure, a lot of time commitments, and productivity becomes kind of an essential thing that you actually have to do, right? When you're a student in medicine, which is super interesting. And so how did YouTube fit in the picture, and how did you come to realize that you could do this?
I'd been wanting to do YouTube since like 2008. I dreamed of being a musician on YouTube. I had friends who were good at singing, and I thought it would be cool to learn musical instruments and like, I'd love to learn the piano and the guitar and stuff. And so for years, I had this dream of being a musician on YouTube. And I randomly did it. I mean, I made a few videos back in like 2017, 2016. Some of them were my friends singing songs. Some of them was me singing "Thinking Out Loud" by Ed Sheeran as a cover. And that video, the only one where I was singing, it got like 3 views and it got like 5 dislikes. And I was like, okay, I'm clearly not cut out for this YouTube thing. I'm not cut out to be a musician on the internet. But then around the same time, this side business that I built, trying to make money on the side in med school, that was sort of plateauing. You know, we were doing like 150K a year in revenue, and it was sort of plateauing. And I was like, okay, I need to get more leads. This was before I knew what leads were, but I was like, I need to get more leads. I need to get more people to find out about my business. So I thought, from first principles, hey, I learned how to make videos with those shitty music videos that I was making. What if I just make videos about medical school? And then people will watch them, and then some percentage of those people will think I'm legit and will buy my course or buy my question bank. And I now know this is called organic content marketing, but I didn't know that at the time. I just thought like, hey, this YouTube thing is kind of interesting. And so I started making videos just talking to the camera, being like, here's how you do well in medical school. Here's how you do well in your interviews. Here's how you do well in this exam. Here's how you study for exams and stuff. And, as much as I had a failed musical career, as soon as I started being a nerd on the internet, just like giving advice, suddenly people started to watch. And I would get like 20 views rather than 2, and then 30, and then 40. And I'd be refreshing my YouTube app every day and be like, 1 more subscriber. I'm now on 68 subscribers. Yes. And as the channel grew, people just kept asking me, be like, hey, how do you study for your exams? How do you focus? How do you not procrastinate? And then people started asking, how are you so productive? And that was weird to me because I was like, oh, I don't really think of myself as that productive. But I guess I was building this business on the side while doing med school at Cambridge, which is like a fancy university, and having a bit of a social life and hanging out with my friends. And I realized I'd picked up so many things over the years of actively researching study techniques that I could make videos about them. And those were the videos that first started to take off on the channel. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to commit to this YouTube thing for the next few years and see where it goes.
Wonderful. Fast forward a few years, you have 6.3 million followers, I think, today. So obviously, it has worked out, and many people are now following you and looking at your content every day. Yeah, I'm just curious. As someone who's of course highly productive, doing so much, how do you balance it all?
I mean, so I've got a kid. I've got my first kid on the way in about a month. So I'm sure things will change then. Every parent I've spoken to says that, oh, wait till you have kids. That's when it'll really hit you. At the moment, honestly, I don't think it's that hard.
I went through that a few years ago, so if you need any tips, I'll try my best.
Sick. I will definitely hit you up when the time comes. Yeah. Yeah. Everyone I've spoken to says it just completely changes your life and also changes the way you approach work and productivity. So I'm very intrigued as to how that goes. But yeah, at the moment, it's actually not that hard when you don't have kids, to be honest. I think I'm pretty good at being intentional with how I spend my time. So I don't feel like I'm good at juggling everything, but I do feel like I'm pretty good at prioritizing what matters most to me. Um, Before, back in the day, I used to worry about like, oh, I didn't reply to enough emails. I've got all these unread messages on WhatsApp, and I've got all these things on the to-do list that I need to do. But since I started researching this productivity and focus stuff, and basically realized that productivity mostly comes down to picking a tiny number of things to actually focus on and then just doing those things and sort of ignoring everything else, I kind of realized that most of the little admin things can safely be ignored for a very long time. And so I ignore most of the small admin things for a very long time until I start getting like letters in the mail being like, we're going to send the bailiffs after you if you don't pay the water bill. And at that point, I'll like take action on that stuff. But it means it frees up my headspace to focus on like, okay, grow the business, build a YouTube channel, get married, have a kid, the big needle moving stuff.
And I think you talk a lot about time boxing, obviously aligning what you need to do and how you spend your time. Something I've seen you bring up a lot in various videos. Is that, do you yourself do that every day? Every few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I live my life by my calendar religiously. If it's not in the calendar, it's not going to get done. So if it's like major projects I need to make progress on, it goes in the calendar. If it's like small things that are, I sort of think of my to-do list as a my to-do list. I put it on the list and I think, you know what, I might do this at some point. But if it's something I absolutely have to do, it has to go in the calendar. Otherwise, it's not going to get done. I also really swear by a technique called the ideal ordinary week, where every few months I will just look at my calendar and I'll ask myself, what does my ideal week look like? And I'll make a blank Google Calendar called Ali's Ideal Week, and I'll just block out like, okay, in my ideal world, I'd be waking up at 7, I'd be sleeping at 11. From 7 till 8, I'd be doing morning routine. From 8 till 12, I'll be doing 4 hours of focused deep work. From 12 till 2, I'll be having lunch with my wife, and then I'll go to the gym, and then I'll do 3 hours of more work, and then Opal will kick in at 10 p.m. to stop me from going on social media, and I'll craft that into like this ideal week Google Calendar. And I'll put in things like, Wednesday and Sunday evenings are date nights. And like Saturday evening and Monday evening is like social dinner where friends come over for something or other. And I'm taking Muay Thai lessons, so I'll put them in. And I'm taking squash lessons, so I'll put those in. And that's good because, there are only 168 hours in the week. And when you have a to-do list, the problem with a to-do list is that it's infinitely long. You can keep adding stuff to it. The good thing about a calendar is that you only have those 168 blocks, and you're sleeping for like 56 of them, which leaves 112. And so by blocking things in the calendar, even on the level of like, this is what my ideal week looks like, it helps me figure out, what do I actually have time for? Like, I want to learn how to draw, but like the calendar's kind of full, so something's got to leave if I want to learn how to draw. So maybe after I've done learning Muay Thai for a bit, I'll swap those out for like drawing lessons or whatever the thing might be. But I think a big mistake that people make with productivity is that they just try and do just way too many things, and there's actually only a finite amount of time to do stuff in.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful piece of advice, and it's something that we observe as well with all the people using the app. It always amazes me how many people have kind of the to-do list on one end, and then maybe a calendar on the other, but there's no connection between the two, right? Or maybe like a New Year's resolution on one end, and then what you actually do. And I think like being able to bridge that gap of what you say you want to do and what you actually spend time towards is a very, very powerful thing. And you mentioned Opal a few times. Just to dig deeper on this, so for you, the way you use Opal is mostly a cutoff time. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't. So when a friend first recommended me Opal, and I didn't think I needed it, I was like, I'm the productivity guy. I don't need an app to tell me not to go on Reddit at 11 p.m. And then I would find myself going on Reddit at 11 p.m. and like watching YouTube videos, sometimes until 2 in the morning. And then I would wake up the next day feeling kind of like groggy and thinking, do I remember anything about what I scrolled last night for 3 hours? Did it have any value to my life? I thought, no, it doesn't have any value to my life. I don't even remember it the next day. So all I'm doing is sacrificing 3 hours of sleep for the sake of random scrolling on Reddit and YouTube. What's the point of that? And then I thought, you know what? Let me just remove the decision from my own head. I'm in favor of the whole, I pretty much wear the same thing every day. I eat the same food every day. I go on the same walk every day. Minimizing sort of decisions is something that I've been doing for a long time. But for some reason in the realm of technology, I didn't take that seriously. And then I found Opal. I was like, oh, great. I'll just set the cutoff time so that it's not even an option. The option is out of my hands. And so sometimes I'll be watching a YouTube video, the clock will hit 10 p.m. and it'll say, oh, Opal says no. And I'll be like, ah, and I'll feel that annoyance. I'd be like, God damn it, Kenneth. And then I'll think, thank you. This is good. I can now wipe and then get ready for bed or something like that.
Removing the decision is a very important one, right? And this is something that I think a lot of people have a certain amount of shame, perhaps, and also blame themselves for a lot of the behavior online. I think it's something that you touch upon, very brilliantly in your latest book about bringing joy back to productivity and not necessarily shame. That's kind of the opposite. But I do think that for most people, they have this reaction of saying, it's my fault if I don't do this, or I'm to blame. I'm the one to blame if I'm, scrolling past 10 p.m. But obviously, we all know that these apps have been built by pretty smart people who, have developed pieces of software that are habit forming and quite addictive. And so I think it'll be reassuring for many people to hear that even the productivity guy needs a tool as well and a system to be able to do this. It's not just pure kind of sheer willpower, right?
Yeah, that's the thing, and there's all this stuff about, is willpower a depletable resource? People have different opinions on this. The studies are inconclusive, but to me, willpower is sort of a depletable resource. And so I'm like, if I can just find ways to not use my willpower, especially when, as you say, like, what chance do I have against an army of 10,000 plus engineers at Facebook who are literally paid to make the app as addictive as possible? Like, what are my chances with my brain that's been evolved for, like, a world that's very different to the world that we're actually living in? So yeah, I just love taking decisions out of my life and finding a way to systemize the thing that I know my higher self wants me to do.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. And that's something that I follow your advice on a lot, and I experience that as well. I'm also a user of my own product, and I think it's become quite essential because it's also, I think, the alternative, which is not participating in the world of, let's say, social media or content or news. Is probably too much of a step, and there's also there's so many great things on these tools, which makes it difficult, right? It's like you actually do want sometimes people to go on Reddit, but not just all the times, right? What would you say today is the greatest issue in terms of productivity, or perhaps the greatest source of distraction?
I think the easy answer would be the social media apps, but I think there's something deeper, which is I think a lot of people are working on stuff that they really just don't care about. And when you're working on something that you really don't care about, whether it's that your parents have made you do a degree, or your school is making you study a subject that you really don't care about, but it's a required subject to get to the thing you really do care about, or you're in a job where you really don't care about it. In that world, like, it is genuinely really hard to focus on something if your heart is not in it. It's genuinely really hard to focus if you're having to force yourself to do it. One of the big insights that I kind of came across, which is kind of why I wrote my book, is that enjoyment is efficiency. To quote a friend of mine, Joe Hudson, who kind of talks about this a lot, like, if you can find a way to enjoy the thing that you're doing, and ideally to even find meaning in it, now all of productivity and focus and stuff becomes way easier. It becomes way easier to do something when you're actually enjoying it and when you can find meaning in it. Easier said than done, but in this moment right now, anyone watching or listening to this, you could just ask yourself, what can I do to make this thing I'm doing 10% more enjoyable? How might I bring 10% more enjoyment to watching this interview or listening to this? How might I bring 10% more enjoyment to my work? I literally have a screensaver on my phone where the whole, like, what it says is, what would this look like if it were fun? That's kind of one of the post-it notes I used to have on my desk when I was working as a doctor, and then in the early days of the YouTube channel. What would this look like if it were fun? And asking ourselves the question, what would this look like if it were fun? I find that that's generally a pretty good way to get to the thing actually becoming just a little bit more enjoyable. And when it's more enjoyable, we're a lot less likely to get distracted.
That's super interesting. So enjoyment is productivity. And how did you discover this?
Yeah, so at university, I did an extra degree in psychology because as part of medical school, you could do an extra thing, and within that, I did a lot of reading around like the field of positive psychology. Like, how do you not just not just how do you cure someone with depression or schizophrenia, but more like how do you flourish as a human and stuff. And I came across a couple of these theories in the world of positive psychology that basically showed that enjoyment equals all the good things. There's a book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Acker, who's like a Harvard professor on happiness and stuff, who basically found that it's not that people who are successful are happier because they're successful. It's actually the other way around. It's like people who are happier end up being more successful. And I always thought, that's interesting. I realized that in my time in med school, the times where I did the best were when I was enjoying the work the most. And I would find ways to enjoy the work by getting my friends together in a library together so we could all study together. And we would all do the Pomodoro technique together. And we would all have the same music playing in the background. And we would take a break every 25 minutes and have a conversation for 5 minutes and then resume. And we'd hop to different libraries and coffee shops to change up the scenery. And I would just find whatever lever I could possibly pull to make the memorization of boring ass medical stuff just a little bit more enjoyable. And I found that that helped me sustain it and helped me actually enjoy my time at university. So then I sort of carried this forward through the rest of my life. I did a bunch more research into the science behind this when I was researching my book. But like, yeah, I just so strongly believe that when we are enjoying the thing, distraction becomes a lot easier to deal with and focus becomes a lot easier to make happen.
Yeah, and I'm so aligned with this, and I think a lot of the ethos that we put inside the Opal app, is really based on that as well. We try to bring some joy in various parts of the app and the experience, through either like the block screens or little gemstones that you can unlock at different times. We also have a leaderboard, by the way, and I don't know if you know this, Ali, but I checked this morning, and you are number 2 on my personal Opal leaderboard for most focus hours recorded. So
Really?
congratulations.
Nice. Thank you.
This depends on like who you have, as friends in your app. So, but yeah, a little friendly competition also, hopefully making it a bit joyful. But we try that.
No, it is very nice. I love the gems and the points and all of the little haptic feedback that you guys have put in. It's just, it's really well done.
I really appreciate it. And I'm super excited also that you're, venturing as well in the world of app building and creating more products. And maybe, to close this off, I wanted to talk to you about just a hope for the future. Now, you obviously have a lot of influence. You've helped so many different kinds of people achieve so much more. What impact do you hope your world will have on the world in the coming years?
So when I was 18, I discovered Tim Ferriss's book, The 4 Hour Workweek, and it completely changed my life because it opened my mind to the possibility that there was another way to live compared to the way that I'd sort of been conditioned by society to live. It opened my mind to this idea that like you can in fact build a business that makes passive income and you can automate stuff and you can in fact live a quote rich life even if you're not that rich, because like what's the point of being rich anyway? It's like, all of this sort of stuff. And that book, the way I think of it looking back is that just reading that book at the right time nudged my life trajectory into a completely different path. And a big part of why I still do YouTube videos and enjoy the idea of continuing to write books and even making building apps, of which Opal is a big inspiration, is because if my stuff can be that nudge for someone, whether it's helping nudge their way towards getting better grades in school or at university, or to starting a YouTube channel, or to starting a business, or to realizing that the career they're in is not actually the one they want to be in, and actually it's okay to take a break and do something different. Like those kind of small changes, if it gets the right person at the right time, can completely change someone's life. And so Tim Ferriss changed my life through his book. I've never met the guy. He probably doesn't know who I am, although I was referenced on his podcast one time a few months ago, so that's cool. But at some point I'll meet him and I'll burst into tears because I'll be like, oh my God, you've like changed my life so much because of that one thing that you wrote back in 2007. And so I hope to have maybe an analogous impact for some other people.
Any follow-up to Feel Good Productivity plans?
Yeah, we're working on a second book. I don't think I'm allowed to say the title yet, but like it's really trying to get at the question of what is a fulfilled life beyond merely a productive one. I think productivity, as much as I like to try and broaden the definition to be quite holistic, productivity, most people think of it in a very sort of work-oriented way. And, my personal journey is I was very productive. I built the business, became financially free. I don't need to work ever again. ... And then what? Like, what happens? Like, what's man's search for meaning beyond, hey, I just want to be comfortable enough to make my basic ends meet and to support my family. And so that's kind of what I'm in the process of researching and reading about and exploring these days.
Looking forward to that. I will definitely be purchasing this follow-up and this new book. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.